Welcome to Echoes of Swing. My name is April D. Shields, and we're sitting today with Mr. Butch Miles. Thank you so much, Butch, for joining us today.
My pleasure, April. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I started to tell you a couple weeks ago that the first time I met you, I was 6 years old, and I was sitting next to Ann Davison, Wild Bill's wife, Wild Bill Davison's wife. And I was remembering I was watching the set and everybody on the stage very intently. And I turned to Ann and I had said, "Why is Butch the only one happy to be playing?" And Ann had turned to me and she goes, "Oh dear, Butch is always the only happy one to be playing, especially outside." Because Bill hated playing outside. I've always remembered that. And one of the things that I've found is you always are happy to be playing. You, Terry Gibbs, Harold Jones, and basically that's the only three I can think of that it seems like you're always, anytime you see any of you playing, you're just always just so happy to be playing. And it's something that always deeply touched me, because if you're going to be playing this kind of music, then you better be having fun with it.
This is very true. Definitely. I've seen a few old photos that were shot early on with my first tenure with Basie back in the mid to late 70s. And there's one photo that I'd absolutely adored. It appeared, let me backtrack real quick. We had played an engagement maybe about 1 or 2 years after I joined Mr. Basie, back in my old hometown of Charleston, West Virginia. Well, that was one of my hometowns. It's where I did the majority of my growing up in. And we played that night. Of course, I had a whole lot of friends show up and a lot of people and everything. And a friend of mine got a photograph from the side of the band while we were in mid-flight doing something spectacular. And I am just, if you could see the aura around me, you'd see it was solid gold, and I'm in pure, unadulterated joy at that moment. Yeah. And it appeared in the local newspaper. I've still got that clipping, as old and as tattered as that thing is. I've still got that scrapbook of mine. It basically told me everything I ever needed to know about what it was like to play drums with Count Basie. Yeah. So naturally, I'm smiling.
Of course. I mean,
and all the great musicians. I mean, Wild Bill and Tommy and all the cats over the years. Every time I've worked with somebody who was so great and so wonderful, I just sit down and smile just to be sitting there.
Well, and it was funny because when my first interaction with you really was with Tom Saunders and Wild Bill Davison. So I had no clue whatsoever of anything else you had done. I just remember you're always kind and gracious, and because of my family background, half being from Georgia, the other half Oklahoma, as a very young kid, I had a very thick, weird accent. And you stood up for me once because Saunders made fun of my accent, and you just looked at him and went, "Hey," and he never did it again.
Well, I felt for you, April, because as I just hinted, my early years were in a small town called Hinton, West Virginia, down in the southeastern section of the state. And then the rest of the time was in Charleston, West Virginia. And then when I started going out on the road with Wonderful Trio and we were playing different cities, I realized people spoke and sounded different from me, because I sounded a little bit like this, talking like, if you going back in the holler, we'll take
from coal mining country,
And then I began listening to radio stations, Detroit and Chicago, and I began flattening the accent. But there are times when, in the old days when I still drank and when I would really get a little bit, and now even when I get very, very tired, I'll slip back into that. But the rest of the time, this is my natural voice now. So I'm easy to get in and out of accents. You name a dialect and I pretty much more nail it. But I resented Tommy just for that second, as dear friend that he was, sort of like picking fun at you because that was the natural way you spoke. People just sound like that sometimes. There's not being funny. One time, my daughter, I was living in New York and my daughter came to visit. and she had a thick accent, very thick, bless her heart. I mean, really.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at a restaurant, and she turned to me at one point and she said, "Dad," she said, "the people around here sound funny."
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
said, "Well, honey, you sound funny to a lot of them." She said,
Right.
"I do." So
That's like
don't make
me as
fun.
a little kid. Yeah, I know.
Don't
I
do that.
could.
Don't make fun of an accent.
Yeah,
Please.
exactly. No, you made sure you weren't mean or anything, but you made sure Saunders knew, don't do that.
And here, Tommy's married to a wonderful woman who we couldn't understand half the time anyway.
Uh-huh. I
I mean,
know.
Tilly
Yeah.
had that thick accent.
Yes, she did.
Yeah,
And
yes,
and once she got mad, it got thicker, like you say. It was, I had a roommate that said, "I can always tell when you talk to your family because I can't. I start to not be able to understand you." And but yeah, I remember the first year that you were not with Saunders. It was after Wild Bill had died at Sacramento, because I looked forward to seeing you. I was I looked and Metz was there, Eddie Metz. And I just kind of looked at him setting up the drums, and I looked at Saunders with this, what must have been a panicked look. And he said, "Butch is fine. Butch is fine. He's fine." I'm like, "Okay, where is he?" And he goes, "He's with Basie." And I went, "Wait, what?" So that's when it finally started to go, okay, which doesn't this April, Pete, these guys don't just play with each other, they play with all kinds of things. And then a few years down the road, I'm in high school and Saunders calls me up and says, "You live in Santa Cruz, right?" "Yeah." "Okay, well, here's what you need to do. The Butch is going to be with Basie in Santa Cruz down at the boardwalk. Do you know what that is?" And I went, "Yeah, anybody that's here knows what the boardwalk is, the Coconut Ballroom." And he goes, "All right, well, you have to go." Okay. And he goes, and if you need some money to take Butch out to dinner, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Just go. Tell him hi. You need to go. You love Basie. You need to go." And I don't think we had gone out to dinner or anything, but I do remember that I came up, and of course you didn't remember me because the last time you see me, I was this little teeny thing. But you were still quite gracious. And I told you that Saunders just said to say hello. And I don't remember who was leading the band then. I know Scotty was there, but I don't think he was leading it then.
No, this was quite a few years after, I believe, after Mr. Basie had died. And
yeah,
so
it was in the 90s.
I had gone back with the band. So what year do you think it was?
I was probably still in high school, so it would have been mid 90s. Maybe.
Okay, or toward the end of the 90s. That was Grover Mitchell.
Oh, okay, that's who it was. Yeah.
Yeah, Grover was leading then, yeah.
Yeah, but it was, of course, a swinging band. And by the time I got home, my roommate was, "Will you please call Saunders? He's been calling over and over to see how it went." So he just loved you and was always just so appreciative of not only your talent, but your attitude. He really just loved the fact that you were just somebody that was so easygoing and happy and easy to get along with, and played your what off.
We had a lot of good trips with Saunders and also with Wild Bill. And
Yeah.
Did Tommy ever tell you the story about Ann and Bill? And for those of you folks at home who don't recall or have never known, Wild Bill came by his name honestly.
Yes, he did.
And at one point, he was a very heavy drinking
Curmudgeon.
Just the curmudgeon. That's a good one. That's it. We'll just leave it at curmudgeon. we were traveling all over. I don't know if Tommy ever told you about this, but we were in a little town. We would stay in a little town called Weiblingen, Germany, which was down the street a little bit from Stuttgart. And it was this nice hotel, and it was a nice little town, very, very nice. But across the street, there was a bar.
Yes, yes.
And he told you that story?
Yes, but please go ahead, because I was actually going to ask you about that, so I'm so happy you read my mind.
The entrance to the bar, ladies and gentlemen, in England at one point, I haven't been over there for a few years, so I can't remember now whether they still do or not, but they had payphones on the streets, but not like a payphone that you would find in some of the bigger cities in the United States. These were a big deal. They were in red, like a small room.
Yeah.
Bright red with the crown up on the top and the whole bit, and phone, and you could go in there and shut the door and, make your call. This was the entrance to the bar. You would open the door, get into the telephone booth, which was empty in the back, and just go through, and there you are in the bar.
Yeah.
And Anne at that time, bless her heart, was really watching after Bill. She was so concerned, and she was concerned about the rest of the guys too.
Sounds like Anne, yeah.
Led by the aforementioned Tommy Saunders,
who was trying to catch up to Bill's drink quota every year.
He got pretty close. But
yeah, I think he surpassed him sometimes.
I'm not too sure, though. No one ever called him Wild Tom, but the Wild Bill stuck.
Not to his face, anyway.
The way we would get away with it is if anybody like Bill Allred or myself or Tommy or any of the other guys wanted to go over to the bar and have maybe a beer or something. In Germany, beer, yeah. They'd say, well, listen, I got to go make a long distance call. Okay, so just go right across the street and go into the telephone booth and go right into the bar. I'm not sure Ann ever caught on. Because we were going over to make a long distance call all the time.
Bill Allred posted a picture of that. All of you guys standing in front of that phone booth going like this. I got to find it for you and see if send it to you because it's hilarious. I'll see if I can post it here too if Bill gives me permission because it's all of you are just like
great memories. Absolutely. It's great for that phone booth.
And then once Bill found out what you guys were doing, he was kind of irritated. He goes, well, I want to make a call. And Ann would not let him out of her sight. She almost killed him one time. They were flying all over the world and Ann couldn't cook. I mean, she literally used her oven as storage for cleaning products.
I didn't know that.
And when I go down to stay with her down in LA and take her to doctors and the grocery store and clean the house and everything else, I'd ask her, where's the Windex? The first time I stayed there, she goes, oh, it's in the oven, dear. What? Who puts Windex in the oven? But anyway, they were on some flight to Japan or something, and apparently the food was good. And so Anne asked for a doggy bag for the food served on the airplane. And also completely understandable because Anne was always doing stuff like that, saving food. Well, she left it a little too long and then she fed it to him a while later and he got food poisoning real bad.
Oh my.
And I told Bill, well, that's payback for making Ann carry everything for you all the time because he'd walk out of the plane spotless, just holding his horn, and she'd be, schlepping all these bags and garment bags and everything else. So it serves you right.
I remember.
Man. Another person that had some great conversations where you had come up actually was the Brewbacks, both Dave and Iola.
Oh, love them too. They were just
Yeah,
wonderful people.
they
Wonderful.
were. It was just Iola was just, you just sit down with her and it was just like she's even though you would get hugs, it was just talking to the two of them. It was just like getting verbal hugs constantly because they were just such sweet, caring people. You just, if you were nervous or worried, you just settled right on down almost instantly. And when I had first met them, it was like a family thing. It was at the Monterey Jazz Festival for the anniversary of the Real Ambassadors suite that he had written for Lewis and Carmen McRae and Lambert Hendricks and Ross in '62 originally. And so I was sitting backstage with Bill Berry and Gerald Wilson, and here comes Dave and Iola and Chris, and not Darius, but shoot, the other son. I can't remember.
Danny?
Yes, thank you. Woo.
Danny, the drummer. Yeah.
Right. Gonna have to edit that out because that's bad. But so we all just sat down and we're talking away, and I can't remember. I think it was Bill or Gerald, one of the two, said, "Oh, April knows Butch," and both Dave and Iola just got this just peaceful, happy grins on their faces and went, "Oh." They just loved you.
Oh, I love them right back.
Yeah. How long did you work with Dave? Because
people.
you kind of worked with him on and off for a while, right?
Well, I joined Dave. As a matter of fact, that's why I left Basie.
Oh, okay.
You know, the first time in '79 was to join Dave.
Uh-huh.
And somebody asked me at one point, they said, how in the world can you go from a big band like Basie's to a quartet like Brewbacks? And I said, I grew up on both of them.
Yeah.
I had everything that I knew of Basie, I had memorized before I even joined the band. Same thing with Dave. He was always writing new material.
Right.
Which was good because we were always doing stuff. But I had all of the older stuff memorized, and I had my Joe Morello impression down to a T, a lot slower than the way Joe could play it. Yeah. But I would do every night when we would do Take 5, I would always do a little something of Morello's that I'd stolen directly from him, sort of as a tip of the hat, as a thank you. And we had the most wonderful time. The whole Brubeck family was the most gracious, most wonderful, warmest folks in the world.
Yeah.
Before Dave passed, I realized I didn't have anything from him. I didn't have a letter. I didn't have a photo or anything. So I wrote to Dave's road manager, an old friend, Russell Floyd, who's still with Dave. And I asked him, I said, you know, how's Dave doing? And Russell said, well, you know, Dave has got a lot of good days. Every once in a while he has a bad day, but he's not doing any of the fan mail or anything else anymore. And I said, oh, I was hoping to get an autographed photo. About a week later, I get an autographed photo from Dave. It's hanging downstairs on my wall over on the mantle. A beautiful autographed photo. And about 2 weeks later, David left us.
Oh, no. Well,
and
that was so sweet that he took the time.
I know, you know, he didn't have to, and I understood, but Russell mentioned it, and Dave did that. He was that type of a person.
Yeah.
I wrote Iola a very personal letter and sent it to her, and that wonderful woman wrote me back, and I still have that letter.
Yeah, she was just such a sweetheart, and I was amazed because, you know, I had met her in that context, and I had forgotten when I'd first met her that she had written those lyrics for the aforementioned Real Ambassadors suite. And actually, I was talking to Bernard earlier today, Flager, your friend from Germany.
Oh, yes.
And mentioning how the first time we were talking about the first time we heard They Say I Look Like God, that tune that Dave wrote, that Iola wrote the lyrics to, that Lewis sang, and how really deeply emotional it was, and how Iola just, you know, hit it so perfect and meshed so well with Dave's songwriting that you would almost think it came from the same brain the way it worked. But she was just such a deeply caring individual that those lyrics just stood out so well. And then she turns around and writes the lyrics on that same album of Good Review, which is so tongue-in-cheek.
Yes.
So she had a good sense of humor too. Oh,
but she was such a dear lady. The whole Brubeck clan is I just took to them instantly, and I think they took to me too. And we always had such
Yeah.
a wonderful relationship.
Yeah. Was Senator in the band at that time, or?
No, that was the quartet we had with, let me see, Chris was on bass, and
Uh-huh.
we played trombone, and then of course Dave and me and Jerry Berganzi.
Oh, okay.
Berganzi was on tenor saxophone,
Right.
and it was a little bit different sound for Dave. It was a
Yeah.
more intense. We only did one, to my everlasting thanks and also kind of sorrow. We did an album. I only did one with Dave, but
Uh-huh.
I'm glad I did it. On
Yeah.
this one, we did a live album from Concord, the Concord Jazz Festival
Yeah.
back in 1979.
Right.
And the difference in Brubeck quartets is astonishing because, Jerry was kind of like a take no prisoners
Yeah.
type of tenor saxophone player. It just,
Yeah.
you're all up in your face and everything. And I
Mhm.
loved it. And
Mhm.
Dave could play that way too. A lot of people didn't realize that, but
Yeah.
he was as two-fisted as anybody else.
Mhm.
And it was so much fun for us because we never knew when Dave was going to change the tempo, and we had to stay doing exactly what we were
Yeah.
doing when we moved around, and even went into a different key, but he made it work somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, the man was just about 3 steps above brilliant.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
had such a wonderful personality. But that quartet, when we would do take 5, Chris was on the bass,
Mhm.
and Chris would go into a trance. That's the only
Yeah.
way I could put it.
Yeah.
He would
Yeah.
start
I've seen it.
back and forth. It'll look in your head, and
Mhm.
dum, 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 and he's back and forth. And then when it came time for me to take my little break and do my little thing,
Yeah.
I could rely on Chris to never move, and I could go in and out of tempo the same way
Yeah.
like Dave. I could put
Yeah.
tempo on top of a tempo, and people would say, "Wow, how do you do that?"
Yeah.
Because I'm listening to
Yeah.
Chris Brubeck.
Yeah.
That's my
He's a
anchor.
rock. Yeah. Yeah. No,
It
absolutely.
was so much fun.
Well, they used to all play together so much that, that basically everybody else could just kind of fit right in, because him and his kids were just so much in line with one another because they had been playing together all the kids' lives, and they had so much deep trust for each other. I know that you have mentioned many times before, just speaking of trust in playing, the amount of trust in the Basie band was, it seems like, I mean, not just from watching clips of the band and the fact that Basie just knew that the guys were going to get there. He trusted that all of you guys were going to get there because you had help from, was it Marshall Royal or
No, Bobby Plater. Marshall
yeah.
left the band before I got in, but I knew Marsh.
Yeah.
But Bobby Plater ran that band for Basie.
Yeah. But musically speaking, if Basie is just going into something and somebody tells you what the chart is when you were first coming in, that level of trust between everybody, you can just tell that everybody just kind of goes in line, even if Freddie messed with the tempo.
You know that story? You know the story that I think I've told it a few times. Freddie used to play the intro to Little Darlin' a
Yeah.
little different from the way that Basie would set it up.
Yeah.
Basie would set it up out of tempo and everything, and then the ba 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 da da was in tempo. He would state the tempo, and then Freddie would play do ba do do ding in a different tempo.
Yeah.
And the band would go with Freddie.
Yeah, every
All
time.
with Freddie, So, da 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 ba ba do ding ba da.
Uh-huh.
It's Freddie Green's doing that. So the first year I was on the band, we took a break over Christmas, and we came back a little after New Year, and everybody was there except Freddie Green.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't figure it out. First night, no Freddie. Second night, no Freddie. So I asked Basie, I said, "Chief," it was one of his nicknames. I said,
Yeah.
"Chief, what happened to Green? Where is he?" And Basie said, "Oh, he's down in Florida playing golf. He'll be down there for a while." And then he said, "Maybe we can play some of my tempos for a change."
I was sitting in somebody's hotel room at some festival, and Saunders and Hedges, Chuck Hedges, we were sitting together, and somebody was playing. If it wasn't Little Darlin', it was something like that. Like you say, Basie started the tempo. Freddie comes in, different tempo. The band follows Freddie, and my face went, And Hedges just broke up laughing. He goes, "We taught her how to listen. She got that." I went, "Basie didn't fire him." And he goes, "No."
He was in the band longer than Basie was. Let me tell you.
Well, it's Kansas City Blue Devils, right?
Yep.
Goodness. Right.
There were times when I couldn't hear up on the stage because we didn't have monitors all over the place. We were a big band, so we had 2 mics out front and one for Basie to talk on. Sometimes there was a mic in the piano if we were playing outdoors, or but generally they didn't mic the hell out of us, excuse my language, because we didn't like that. We wanted a natural type of a sound. But there were times when I couldn't really hear. The rhythm section, the rest of the section was over to my right, and the band's over to my left, which is the way it should have been. But when I couldn't hear Freddie, who was like maybe 10 or 12 feet away from me, I could always see the motion of his arm. And so as long as I could see that, and I could look underneath the piano, I could see where Basie's foot was tapped. In between the 2 of them, I had a lock. I put it right there, and it stayed there. So I used my eyes as well as my ears. Little known trick. Don't tell anybody.
I know that Paul Keller said that he had to do that sometime playing with Eddie Higgins, because, you know, Higgins would kind of start.
Oh boy.
Start not going full center on something. And then Paul would be like, okay. So he'd look over at underneath the piano cover to watch where the keys were going, because he'd just be like, okay, that's where we're going.
Eddie was brilliant at that, though. I mean, Eddie Higgins, he could play time on top of time, in between time, but he always knew exactly where he was.
And he'd go right back to it.
And so Paul was very smart. If he could watch his hands or even watch his feet, Eddie was there, always in the slot. Always. Oh, man.
Well, and for Paul to say that, because, you know, it's Paul, so we know how great a bass player he is, and the fact that he was like, "I'm getting lost, so I have to look." You're going, wow.
I got a story for you. One time, let me see. It was Milt Hinton, and I can't remember the piano player's name. All of a sudden, I'm drawing a total blank. Roger Calloway. Thank you. Roger Calloway and Milt and I, and we're at a jazz party, and we're doing a set, just the 3 of us. I don't remember the tune. Please forgive me. But we're playing something, and if you remember Milt, he was so happy. One of the old Cab Calloway guys showed us, and he's smiling and he's dancing. So we're really intense on this particular tune. And Roger, being the genius that he was, starts to take a left on us and take us over into another orbit somewhere, still staying within the overall consigns of the tune itself. But it's like, whoa. So, you know, I'm playing right along and I'm smiling, you know, and I look over the judge, what we call Milt, the judge, and he's over there and he's smiling and dancing, and I'm playing, and I said, "Judge," he says, "Yes." I said, "Where are we?" And Milt says, "I don't know."
Least we admit it.
That's one of the great moments of entertainment.
I know. Well, Higgins admitted, because I asked him later about that thing with Paul, and he goes, and he kind of got this little grin on his face, and he goes, "I did that deliberately a few times."
Oh my.
Such a sense of humor. But, you know, you can really screw it up, or you can make it take, like you said, off into orbit, into another level awfully easy. It depends on the genius of the person that's doing it. It's not easy, and doesn't end in not a car wreck very often.
No, that's very true. You can have somebody who is stretching their wings and trying to evolve even more, and these are wonderful, wonderful moments, but sometimes it is a train wreck, and you just have to take the good with the bad, because it's a learning curve, and it's a growing process. But sometimes, boy, it's a train wreck. You have to look away. You got a big band on stage,
guys.
At the wrong time, you know, and you don't know whether to go crash or to whatever.
So
There have been
easy.
moments like that too. Oh my goodness. Oh.
You go, this is best left forgotten.